What are we talking about today, Amanda?
Today we're going to be talking about remakes. We know they're going to happen. It's inevitable. So what are some of the pros and cons that go along with them?
Oh, it's going to be a good episode.
Should be.
Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Amanda and Omar. Today we're talking about remakes. As you guys know, in Hollywood, it happens. We are going to have remakes depending on the length of time between movies. We're going to have something get remade. It's just inevitable.
Yep. It's always been a part of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's part of the Hollywood machine.
It's always been part of movie making. We borrow movies from overseas. We remake movies from here. Mm-hmm. We remake movies that were based on books, and we remake the movie and not remake the vision of the book. It's kind of weird, but it's always going to happen. We can't do a show of why it shouldn't happen because sometimes they need to happen. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both. So let's start negative?
Yeah, let's start negative. So
negative.
What are some of the cons? I know Omar has a lot of heavy feelings or strong feelings about remakes in general.
This is false. Fake news. Men don't have feelings. We think.
Okay. He has some reasons why
that's better.
Remakes should not work. So Omar, let's talk about some of those reasons.
Okay. Reason number 1. If it's identical to the original movie, why should they be remade? And I'm talking about movies like the Psycho remake. It is literally a shot for shot.
One, right?
Yes, Vince Vaughn, Gus Van Sant directed it.
Yes.
It's shot for shot Alfred Hitchcock's movie. What's the point? I don't get it. There's not like you're doing anything unique with that movie. Why not go see the original? So things like that.
Yeah.
Things that bother me, and we'll use Disney.
Yes,
go ahead and get into your Disney territory because
I know how
you feel about this because you get excited about these trailers,
and
I'm on the opposite end. I'm get pissed when I see these trailers. So we had things like Cinderella, we had things like Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
And this year we are getting
Lion King.
And Aladdin.
And Dumbo.
Don't forget
Dumbo. Mm-hmm.
Have not. Now those movies are cartoons, right? Disney,
they are cartoons.
Which are loosely based on classics. Well, Shakespeare's classics or fairy tales.
Things that were already in for fair use, and Disney was smart and decided to use them.
So it's not like they're remaking the original. Like when they remade The Jungle Book, it's not like they went back and remade the book, The Jungle Book. They went back and remade the Baloo, the bear.
That's more of
Jungle
what
Book.
Andy Serkis did with Mowgli. Went back to the book source, and that movie was
interesting
on Netflix, which is okay. I wouldn't recommend it, but anyway.
So when I see trailers for things like The Lion King, the first thing I think of is, what's the point? It is exactly the same movie. You're not using live actors in this movie. You're literally using animation, computer graphic, graphics to take place of the animation, the beautiful hand-drawn animation from the original movie.
And it's beautiful hand-drawn.
All you're adding is just voice actors, and so my question is, what's the point of something like that?
And beside the point of the fact that, yes, technically it's still animation, the idea I think we're going for is, why remake that IP at all? And that's how I got excited when Beauty and the Beast came out.
Right, Beauty and the Beast is the same thing.
Mainly because I've always, Emma Watson would have been a perfect Belle. But
she wasn't as good as the original animated.
She's definitely not. Yeah, her voice is definitely not on point.
Her voice and even her acting.
Well, she's always been a little stiff in her acting. That's how she was.
And I know how you feel about Harry Potter, so
it's okay. I can admit I can admit when things aren't perfect.
But to go back to our topic, Disney is notorious for doing this.
What they're doing is hyping up on nostalgia.
Right.
So if anyone saw the new Beauty and the Beast, it is almost a shot for shot. The only thing they did is add a couple of new songs that were not that great. They could have been left out, honestly, because there's a reason the original songs were in it and these songs were not in the animated classic. And they didn't add much. It was cool. The wow factor of seeing some of this stuff brought to life, per se, that, was good in the beginning, but it wears off after time. Another con is, a lot of people say is, we have all these remakes, but why do we need a remake? Why can't they just create something original? And it goes back to that idea of there's potentially a lot of different stories and things out there. So why can't you find that story and make it? Why does it have to be the exact remake of Beauty and the Beast?
Why do screenplays like that get passed greenlit when somebody's trying to
more original? That is a different take. Yeah.
Well, James Cameron came out a few months ago and said he hated the idea of superhero movies.
Yes.
Right? Because there's nothing original anymore in Hollywood. And to an extent, I kind of see where he's coming from. You see the same thing over and over again. So it's kind of...
Marvel has a formula. We could see it. It sticks. It doesn't even matter if the superheroes are different superheroes. It's the same superhero formula, right? That they follow first to the third act.
I know one of my cons is when a property is so loved or beloved by people, there doesn't need to be a need for a remake. One of the ones that I think of the most is how much I love Gene Wilder's take on
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
So the remake, I had no... Even though it's Tim Burton, new Tim Burton,
and of
right?
course Johnny Depp before everything happened with him,
but
personally.
People love the original movie so much that when the movie came out, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is, I guess, based closer to the book is what I was told. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it is.
They have this anger towards it, right? Like, immediately they're like, no, what's the point of rebooting this? Why?
Gene Wilder
you feel
such
almost,
a good,
almost like...
protective of it.
Yeah, like it becomes your property. Kind of like Ghostbusters, in a way. Like Ghostbusters...
Yes, had huge backlash. And now, the movie didn't do well, not only because there was backlash, but I think a lot of it was because it wasn't that great of a movie.
Well, that, and of course they blame it on anti-feminism and things like that.
Things like that.
But I think the case
Ocean's
was...
8 did well.
Right.
Which was a reboot.
Well, a reboot of a reboot of a reboot.
Yeah, the Ocean's
We'll
reboots,
talk about
man.
good reboots in a few. But
yeah.
My thing is like once you almost feel like, hey, that's my movie.
Yep.
You don't get to remake it. So when things like that get announced, you automatically have an internal hate for it, and you may never see it. And that's why those movies don't do well. And I figured by now the studios would catch on and be like, okay, there are some properties out there, and which we can talk about a little bit later, that we should never, ever touch.
But then again, at the same time, why should they? Because they're still making money. Even if the diehards are saying no... And now Ghostbusters
but we're not talking about that. We're talking we can't pretend like why these things exist. We know why they exist. It's money, right?
Exactly.
But we're talking about as far as moviegoers go, as far as you and I go, why they should and should not exist.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Those are the cons that I have. I mean, that's what you have anything else?
No, I think that's as far as cons go. Those are the main cons I think everyone has when it comes to remakes. Is that they're just a shot-for-shot remake of an original. There's nothing new or added to them, or why do a remake when you can do something original to begin with? And then, of course, if it's a sacred IP that a lot of fans keep close to their chest, why are you remaking that and upsetting those fans?
Well, even people speak up against that, right? Like you had Gene Wilder speak up and saying he would never see the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because he felt so strong about the role of Willy Wonka the first time. And... so even people that were involved in the project are like, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with that.
And so they had to go and,
Oh, just recently, like She-Ra. Like, there's a huge backlash of She-Ra going on because of people that feel like the original cartoon spoke to them when they were growing up, and this one doesn't really add anything. Right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now, I'm not saying that makes it bad or good, but that's just an argument. It happens. We get attached to a lot of these properties that we take it personal when they're like somebody else wants to dive in and reimagine it.
Exactly.
So, okay.
But then again, at the same time, there are some definite pros to doing a remake.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. One of my pros that I add it's actually the opposite of what my con is when a director takes something unique and puts it into it. Not just the director, but the entire cast. I'll use the example of Seven Samurai. Yeah. The Kurosawa film is one of my favorite films of all time. It's wonderful. Then you have Magnificent Seven. Yep. Western, right? A wonderful, wonderful soundtrack. A lot different, but exactly the same movie. And then you have my favorite Pixar movie, A Bug's Life. Practically all three films are the same movie, but they're all done in such a unique way that they feel like a different experience. And maybe that's my pro. That's your point. As long as like the creative minds behind these projects respect the original, but want to give it a small tweak or a big tweak in some cases. Yes, to like
put their own footprint on it, right?
Right. But, so you have Yojimbo, Fistful of Dollars, and Last Man Standing. Yeah. Same movie. Clint Eastwood, Bruce Willis, and then you have the original Kurosawa film. Mm-hmm. I love watching a marathon of all three movies. They're all different enough that I feel like there is no disrespecting the original by remaking it.
No.
And it makes people, because I didn't know anything about Seven Samurai. If it wasn't for Magnificent Seven and a friend of mine watching it at his house one day, and he was like, oh, have you ever seen the original? I'm like, bullshit, This is the original. So it's really cool that made me go back and watch the original Seven Samurai. So.
And I think that is one of the pros of doing a remake, is that just if the original film is so old that you may not even know, or let's say it's a foreign film that they remade, to an American version, right? Mm-hmm. It gives you that chance to, it was a remake of something else, and you want to go back.
Oh, right.
A good example is the horror films, right? Like, a lot of people will then go and see those original Japanese horror films, say, oh, wow. Like, even though...
Ju-on and Ringu?
Exactly. Like, those are, like, so much better than the American versions. Now, granted, that doesn't say much for the remake, but it is giving that original movie some love and some more attention that it probably deserves. So that's also good to honor and respect that and show that and give that opportunity to the original IP. It's
when you're able to change the setting, too, because you brought up Japanese horror. The Japanese horror, like Ju-on and Grudge or The Eye and things like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, The Eye was Korean. The way those horror movies work over there is a lot different than the way
it works
that
here.
The American setting makes them. Like, even the way that the scary parts and the jump factors and the psychological scary things are a lot different. So that is a good point. I like when they change the setting a little bit. That goes back into the revisioning of the original.
And we talk about when they kind of update or, really rework this basic storyline. So I think of one of my favorite films from last year, for example, was It, which was a remake. I mean, obviously based off a book, then a remake of a TV show with Tim Curry, right?
It was made-for-TV movie.
Made-for-TV movie. And everyone... I mean, that movie got a lot of positive reviews, a lot of positive critical review, and it felt like Stand By Me and a horror movie, and I think that was an example of a good remake doing something different and kind of not updating necessarily the original, but just giving it a different spin, a different look. Mm-hmm. And that's what I enjoyed about that movie, and I think that's why that was so well done. And would be an example of a good remake. The Departed is also a remake of a Hong Kong thriller, Infernal Affairs. And obviously Departed is an excellent film.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, great acting, great directing.
That one almost borrowed a lot of shots, though. But, I mean, it's not the first time Scorsese's made something like that. Because Scorsese also did it in Cape Fear when he remade that classic movie.
Yeah.
And I think he was able to explore the same... Even though it's the same concept, just give it more ideas and explore the territory more. And I like that as well. So I guess that's a little bit different than the new vision, like a vision retelling of the same story with a new vision and a new twist, when they explore the movies more than they were able to do in the original movies.
Yeah. And that, I think you can also see that with, so the most recent remake we've seen that is doing wonderfully at the box office, critically acclaimed, is Stars Born.
Venom.
Yes, Venom. Is A Star Is Born. The original one had Barbra Streisand. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it was one of those it was a beloved film.
And don't forget, before that, Judy Garland.
And also critically acclaimed. But this one, it explored the concept a little bit differently, right? And it brought on new ideas. And of course, under Bradley Cooper's direction and, with the acting styles of him and Lady Gaga, I think they made that more of a different idea for what we need for a modern audience, which is something to be said for remakes when they're doing something like that. And not saying you need to make something for a modern audience to make it for a modern audience because they can't handle the original, but it is an interesting way to explore a IP with a more updated look. And I think that's...
So that's a good... I mean, that's a good pro, is modern... Like, the modernization of some of these stories could make it better.
Yeah.
Right? If the idea is, can you make it better? That's the pro.
Yes.
Right? Can you take the original concept and remain faithful enough? And it's kind of weird. Remain faithful enough to the source material, but depart and make it your own thing with new graphics. Because I feel like sometimes that's kind of wasted. Like, you've got things like, we have CG. There's no reason why Clash of the Titans, the new one with Liam Neeson, was not a better movie than the 80s version.
Was not at all.
Like, the 80s is still the classic movie.
They just thought because we have CGI effects now that you could update it and it would look probably visually more appealing, and that's why they made the Clash of the Titans with Sam Worthington from Avatar.
Well, and then you have horror movies, going back to horror movies, that
Yeah.
they practically are doing the same thing. You've got Friday the 13th, you've got the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, or even Rob Zombie's
And they're gonna
Halloween.
keep doing them, yeah.
Like, visually, they should be a lot scarier and a lot more gorier, but they're not.
They're not, yeah.
They never come off as... Because we do have the technology now to make these things happen. Like, one of my favorite movies recently that doesn't get a lot of love was Judge Dredd, the retelling of Judge Dredd, which is based on the comic book, but
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone did one back in the late 90s. So I think that's a good modernization of that movie, of that character, of Judge Dredd. I thought they did a really good job. Whereas RoboCop could have gone the same way, but RoboCop did not
go that way.
go that way.
Yeah.
Like Star Trek. You're a big fan of Star Trek.
I am, and I
the
think
new Star
the
Trek.
NARS Trek, new Star Trek, particularly
The
the
NARS
first,
Trek, yes.
Yes, the new Star Trek, particularly the first film. Where
She
we
just
get-
loves lens flares. That's
Yeah,
what it
I
is.
love lens flares and Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. But no, I think it was a great updated version of Star Trek for our generation to see, or my generation, millennials, I don't know. I think that all of the characters there brought not only they paid homage to the original characters they're portraying. You know, I mean, you could see a lot of that William Shatner-esque stuff in Chris Pine's performance, right? Or with Zachary Quinto.
Maybe the
but
fact
more
that he was a
updated.
womanizer.
Yeah, well, I mean, but more updated and a little bit more nuanced, and I think they brought a lot of their own stuff to it, and I think that makes it as well.
I
And
will
that's why
say,
enjoyed
I will
it.
say they are different enough, in the same vein that
more action-packed.
Planet of the Apes are different movies.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Like, I'm not talking about the Tim Burton movie, because that
No.
like
We're
that was
talking about-
that was the opposite of like
Yeah.
somebody taking their own vision and doing their own thing and just not doing a good job. But these new movies were so well done. And I know
Yes.
I like these more than the remakes of Star Trek. The Star Trek movies seem to be going for that Fast and the Furious kind of
Yes.
audience, which there's nothing wrong with that,
You
because
need, yes, they're
if
trying
you
to
don't,
appeal to a broader audience.
Right.
And Star Trek is very nichey,
and it worked though, because
Yeah.
one of our co-hosts, Rob, hates the original Star Trek movies, or doesn't like the original series, but loves the new Trek movies.
And that's what you want, right?
And that's
Bring
what
a
they
bigger
wanted.
audience.
That's what they wanted.
And
so
maybe they'll explore the original IP, and maybe they won't. Cause they
well, the
already
new
have.
series is kicking ass.
Yes,
the
on
new Star Trek
CBS.
series.
Yeah, it is.
And
Bring
they're
back
bringing
Sir
back
Patrick
Star Trek
Stewart.
Next Generation too. So
Yeah.
good for them.
Back to, you talk about Planet of the Apes and the new films that have come out. They demonstrate how you can update a property with that CGI and make it way more visually appealing, and you know, use that motion capture with Andy Serkis.
Well,
And the story as well.
I'm sorry but yeah, because the story is completely different.
It is.
This
yeah.
is more of a prequel because this takes place in the present time. So it's like they've done their own thing with it. They've written their own
Yes.
history.
And talking about Planet of the Apes also makes me want to talk about Dumbo, the upcoming one coming out in 2019, because this is going to be a little bit different than, obviously, the original is all animals, right, that we see. So this is going to have people.
Oh, it
in
had
it,
some people.
but there weren't main characters.
No.
No, we're clearly going to be seeing the people in the circus stuff take more of a forefront in this film.
Look, I've already been jaded towards Tim Burton's remakes of Disney classics, okay? So you're talking to the wrong guy. But go ahead, you talk to the audience.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Dumbo, because right now the trailers to me look visually appealing and magnificent, but we'll see what happens when it actually comes out.
Here's the question, Amanda.
Yeah.
Is there anything you hold so high on a pedestal that can never be remade?
Yes.
And what movie is that?
It's not one movie. It's 3 movies.
3 movies.
And that is-
Okay, the Mummy movies.
Yes, the
with
Mummy
Brandon
movies.
Fraser.
How dare they remake that with
Tom Cruise.
Cruise.
Well, they're remaking the original IP, not the new
Yes,
ones.
exactly.
No, seriously, what movies?
No, it is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Why do I feel that way? Is because Peter Jackson was able to take an original book series that was so dense, with so much information, and take the best parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not Tom Bombadil, but that's fine. And
He can get his own spin-off
he gets his own-
HBO
yes,
miniseries.
well, Amazon Prime, because they own that property
my
now.
bad, my bad.
So he did it so well. I can't see how anyone could redo it and make it different and make it better. And if you watch those films today, the CGI in those films, for the most part, still holds up.
Oh, yeah.
So using the argument of better CGI, I also can't see that anyway with this as well. Because those films, to me, are just already perfect. And there's not a whole heck of a lot they can do to make it better.
Okay.
Now they can do prequels and things like that. That's
yeah, they
fine.
tried with The Hobbit.
With The Hobbit,
and
which
no thank you.
it could have been good as one movie. But and they in the TV series, if they're going which the route they're going is like young Aragorn or something like that, that could be great.
And I guess we yet to see.
Yes, we don't know.
I also have a trilogy that you cannot touch. That nobody should touch, and that is Back to the Future. It would have been Karate Kid, but Jesus.
Well, they did have that Cobra Kai.
No, but Back to the Future just happens to be something along the lines that you feel. Like, I saw it as a kid, and it struck such an impact on my life that I was like, I want to make movies when I get older. And then all I did was just make goofy movies with my friends, and now I have a YouTube channel. But it was so good and visually pleasing that really all they need to do is just clean up the special effects, and that's it. I mean, nothing to the extent of George Lucas special edition stuff by adding Jabba the Hutt, but just cleaning up the special effects. The movie the trilogy stands on its own. It's an amazing trilogy that can never be redone.
I would agree with that.
Now, what's a movie you wish they would remake?
Okay, I thought about this long and hard. At first,
I just asked you the question.
At first, I was gonna say The Last Airbender. However, they're making a Netflix series, so a live updated one. So I'll wait to see how that is. So I think I'm gonna pick Kevin Costner's Waterworld.
Oh,
I
love Kevin Costner.
I love Kevin Costner, but that could definitely use some updates. Maybe with the story, maybe with some of the graphics, and I think they could do a lot better job.
Set.
I know, and
it's sank.
Yeah. So I think that's a property.
I can't believe I'm arguing for Waterworld.
But you can still put Kevin Costner in there.
Okay.
I'm a huge Kevin Costner fan. And I'm a huge Kevin Costner fan. Maybe not as much as you are, but
a lot.
Yes. So
not that I replayed the bathing scene in Robin Hood over and over. Nothing like that crazy.
No, there's something that never should get remade. Any more Robin Hoods? Can we just stop, guys?
Yeah,
please? Okay.
True.
But that's one I think could get a remake, and I'd be happy with seeing that.
I was gonna go with Mac and Me, but I figured Paul Rudd needed something funny to show on Jimmy Kimmel or whatever show he goes. So I'm gonna go with, actually, funny enough, you said M. Night Shyamalan. I love the premise of The Happening.
Yes.
It could have gone such a Hitchcock, weird, Twilight Zone-ish kind of way.
Yes.
And for some reason, the execution was just so horrible.
The acting. Like Mark Wahlberg.
Oh my gosh, Marky Mark Talks to Plants might be one of my favorites, just because that's the way it was. It was so rushed and put together.
It was. I don't know what happened there.
But I kind of dig the premise. That's a pretty messed up premise. The Mother Earth fighting back because she's had enough.
Exactly, and the trailers were good enough, but then they didn't know. We didn't get trailers. Maybe want to watch them. I can't believe I'm living in M. Night Shyamalan.
Of all the movies I could remake, Batteries Not Included, or movies, because that's the thing. It's like Hollywood spends so much money making remakes of movies that we enjoy. Why don't they take a shitty property
and redo it right?
Redo it. I'd like to know what people think.
Yes,
what should never be remade, and what could be remade. That's the question. What do you want remade, and what should never be remade, and why? So leave the comments down below.
Yep, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and follow us on all our social media channels. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great weekend.
What are we talking about today? When I talk?
No, yes.
Because that's all I hear when you talk.
Oh, is it?
Like the Peanuts parents. It's going to be good.
It shall be fun.
Stay tuned. You didn't point. You told me to point. You told me that's our thing.
Oh, yeah. Damn. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Reels Talk.
Oh, no, I get to talk now. I forgot. How's everybody doing? Good. Okay.
Oh my god, that was so... I don't want to so much better than what I did it before.
What did you just say?
Okay, right. Okay. I hit... Okay.
Go. Sorry.